Okay, we have April. We have some unidentified persons from city of Bastrop. I could narrow it down to whole Paso people. Oh, there we go. Oh, there's our ladyship.
Good.
Okay, splendid. Well, we can get underway. Let's start off with, I'm going to do this share screen stuff. All this technology thing is a little bit confusing, but oh, there's Michael. Good. So we have several people remote, and we have here. So I'm going to get into a share screen right now, and hopefully the sound is working at you guys' end. Let's get underway with this. Today's May 18th. Here's our agenda for today. We'll pledge allegiance, prayer. We'll talk a little bit about the barbecue festival event, and Joni is kind of a leader of that parade. Talk briefly about the scholarships. The real program is by his honor, Judge Pape, and a 4-way test. After this meeting, there'll be a planning meeting for this event, the barbecue football festival. So let's start with the pledge allegiance. Remember to start, yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Oh, would you lead us in a short prayer?
I will. Heavenly Father, we beseech your presence in our meeting today as we talk about this club and its good outreach into this community, as we talk about the business of the county. We pray for safety and health for all of our citizens. Bless those who have been affected by the COVID pandemic. Heal them, we pray, and help them to be comfortable in getting back out with their family and friends. All these favors we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Splendid. Thank you. Okay. Little status update on this. There's some brochures here. We went to the conference of club. Montgomery Fisher, Jan, and I went to the conference club. We talked a bit about this. One of our things for this event is to involve other clubs and other organizations. We have Mayfest Park on Friday and Saturday. We let have Mayfest Park used on that Sunday. It'll be a planning meeting on this, but it's going to be kind of a big deal, where it should be a national level event. Now, it's the first time we've ever done it. So we expect to make 3 mistakes somewhere along the way. When we do it next year, we'll get all smarter. Right now, we're in this threshold nervous breakdown. Upcoming programs. We had the library last week. Today we have Judge Pape. Next week, the club assembly. Suggestions for programs are invited. Particular interest is things that are locally relevant. Not exotic, abstract stuff. And so suggestions are invited from anyone. With that, what I'm going to do, unless there's any questions, I'll turn over to Judge Pape. Oh, greetings.
Hey. Do you want to talk about people?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. We went to the conference of clubs, and our club got 2 awards. We got one for increased membership. We got one for Rotary. Oh, yes, that's okay. I'll talk about. Well, we got 2 different awards. One is for increased membership, and which is a challenge these days. Again, it's not great, but all in all, we're not doing bad. It could be worse. You know, you're invited to invite someone you consider to be a good Rotary member. You know, and the other thing we got was public relations. So we got the Rotary All-Star Challenge on that. So, there's Kent. Good. Well, we have Paso people remotely. All right. With that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop share. And I'll go to here. And at this point, what we'll do is I'm going to turn over to Paul. Paul, why don't you sit right here? Let's just trace these. I'm going to adjust the camera so he can hear you. Everyone should be seeing. Let me do this.
A little bit like God.
Well, judges in Bastrop kind of a big deal. Let me adjust this.
was told yesterday I look like a thin Santa Claus.
Very tall.
I guess I'll take it.
This will be good enough. I think people can hear you.
So is the camera here or there?
It's there.
It's here.
Yeah, this is you right
Okay,
here.
but I need to look at this camera.
No, you need to look, yeah, you look at that camera and talk to that camera.
Well, I'll look at y'all and I'll look at the camera.
Whatever. Classic
Go
problem.
back and forth, Doctor. Thank you for inviting me, Norman, to be your guest today and speak about county business. There's a lot going on in the county. I'll start off by giving you a little weather report. Just had a conference call with the National Weather Service, and they're telling us that we can expect substantial rain in the next day or two, and it could come in small showers or it could come in buckets. So the prediction is anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of rain in any given place in the county, but it won't be all over the county. It might rain 8 inches where you live and only 3 inches where someone else is. So be prepared for some meaningful rain here in the next couple of days as we deal with this May weather, springtime weather in Texas.
Not drought, not floods.
Exactly. We live on the cusp of both of those things, and so we're always recovering from either a drought or a flood, and sometimes both at the same time. I've actually declared disasters for floods in the middle of a drought, and I've declared that no outdoor burning should be allowed in the middle of a flood. So it happens both ways. There's, as I said, so much happening in Bastrop County, it's hard to know even where to start. I'm sure that Mayor Schrader agrees and would concur that these are very exciting times to be a public official in this dynamic place. The estimated 2020 population, the Census Bureau has released a preliminary number, not final yet, but they notified me that we're going to be talking around the 90,400 or so citizens in Bastrop County in the official 2020 count. I went back and looked at the 2010 count, and it was 74,300. So that's a 16,100 person increase, which is about a 22% growth over the decade, and more than 2% average growth every year. And that's significant. It's been relatively sustained through that entire 10-year period, although it's probably picked up a little in the last half of the decade, more than it was in the first half of the decade. Regarding COVID, I just wanted to give you some statistics about that. So far, we have confirmed or have probable cases in Bastrop County of around 9,500 people in the county. These are records that are kept by the Department of State Health Services, so we depend upon them for these statistics. About 10,000 COVID tests have been given during the 14 months or so of the disaster, and there have been reported 92 deaths in Bastrop County that were at least somewhat attributable to COVID. As probate judge, I look at all the death certificates of people who passed away in Bastrop County. And I've seen a handful where COVID was the only cause of death. Most of them, it's COVID from pneumonia from COVID, or it's COVID associated with high blood pressure or heart disease or hypertension, something else. But only a handful listed COVID as the only cause of death. So it's a serious disease, and it has certainly warranted the carefulness and the things that we've done to deal with it this year. Now, regarding the vaccines, there's some good news. DISH's records indicate about 35,000 Bastropians have received at least one dose, and 24,000 have been fully vaccinated with 2 doses. Of those 65 years and older, which is the age group that is primarily susceptible to negative outcomes, over 70% have received both of their vaccinations. And of all ages, more than 50% in the county have received both vaccinations. That's all qualifying. That does not include the recently opened up 12 through 16 age group. Now they can receive the Pfizer vaccine, and we hope that parents and students will opt to receive that either now or certainly before school reconvenes in September. We have,
You kind of get it on demand now.
you can get it, I'm
sorry.
talk about that now. There are over 40 medical providers in Bastrop County where you can get the vaccine. There's no cost to the person who receives the vaccine. They may file for an insurance reimbursement. You don't have insurance, they'll just give you the vaccine as part of the federal program. In addition to those 40, we have contracted with Curative, which is a professional firm that does testing and vaccinations all over the country. And we've also joined a 4-county coalition with Travis, Hayes, Caldwell, and Bastrop County to provide mass vaccination clinics at COTA, the racetrack, and now we've moved that over to the Expo Center up off of 969. What we're finding out now, Norm, is that there are more vaccines than there are people to accept them. And we're even finding ways to incentivize people to take the vaccine.
Is there anything our club can do to help with misinformation or
Well,
the grunt work of filling out computer stuff?
yes, there's something every responsible citizen can do, and that is to share the good news that the vaccine is safe and effective. And you're much safer to take the vaccine than and have the protection from getting COVID than you are to not take the vaccine and always have the risk of getting COVID. And the way we sort of beat this pandemic is to get a large percentage of our population vaccinated against COVID. I don't know that we're what medical science would call the herd immunity stage yet, but we're approaching it. And that's when about 70% of everybody has gotten the vaccine. And then the virus can't proliferate among groups of people. So we're in a good place there. I encourage your family and friends to take the vaccine and help us. We're now going to churches. We'll go to civic clubs. If y'all want to host a vaccine clinic and invite people from your neighborhood, your homeowners association, whoever you can find, get 10 or 15, 20 people together who haven't yet been vaccinated. We will try to get Curative or one of the providers there to give that vaccine and get people vaccinated as quickly as possible. Now, let's talk about some other issues in the county. In fact, I brought a list of things, maybe some development pressures, talk about planned capital improvements, talk a bit about economic development opportunities, and then some highway projects, and finally might end with a few comments about the county budget. Regarding development pressure, I've been county judge 9 years now, and I've never seen this much activity for development in Bastrop County. We are receiving applications weekly from developers for not just small tracts of land, not 10 or 15 or 20 acres. We have one development proposal on the table right now for 400 acres of land, another one for 1,273 acres of land. Much of this is in the south or southwest quadrant of the county, between here and Travis County line, as you might suspect. But this development pressure is as strong as I've ever seen. Because of this, last year we developed our first public improvement district policy for the county. We've never approved in the county a public improvement district. It's called a PID. A PID is a tool that developers use to help finance part of their development. And it can be an incentive for developers to improve the quality of their development, make it nicer, have more amenities that people can benefit from. So a PID is a good tool to have in our quiver, our toolbox. It's similar to a MUD. A MUD district has the authority to tax, whereas a PID cannot tax, but the county can place a special assessment on those properties to recover the funds that are issued in bonds. So that's a new development for us here. We passed about a year ago our first solid waste facility siting ordinance in the county. We never had one of those before, but we needed one because we were being inundated with solid waste disposal companies looking in Bastrop County for a place to put their solid waste. I mean, we are neighbors to one of the most dynamic economies in the country, and that dynamism produces a waste stream that has to be dealt with. We all produce a waste stream. But we did not want to have a free-for-all in places to locate solid waste facilities in Bastrop County. And so we passed our first siting ordinance, and it has been effective. There was a company that was interested in putting a landfill down off of 535, just south of the Cedar Creek High School on 535. And after we passed our ordinance, they changed their mind about putting that.
That's a good thing. I said that would be impossible. Water pollution issue too.
It has a negative impact in many ways. Water is certainly one of them. Flood, we don't want anything built in a floodway and producing litter and trash being washed out of a facility. And it just diminishes the property values within a mile or so of the location of it. So our ordinance is pretty strong, and in fact, a solid waste facility can't be put within a mile of any residential subdivision. So I think that's a good thing that we've done. And these things sit and brew for a while, and then the timing comes along, and we've got good leadership on the Commissioner's Court now. We're working together as a team, and we're able to make some of these milestone decisions on behalf of the citizens of Bastrop County. As far as capital improvements go, we recently issued some certificates of obligation, sold some bonds, and we're using that money. Each commissioner will get about $1 million to do capital improvements on their roads and bridges. It's so hard to raise enough money to really replace a bridge. I mean, the average bridge on a county road, to replace it with what you would want to replace it with today would be about $250,000. That's the average bridge. Like Commissioner Hamner out in Lake Bastrop Acres replaced a bridge over Piney Creek that washed out during Hurricane Harvey. That one cost over $1 million, one bridge. And so our commissioners have a hard time with, the annual operating budget, getting enough money to do big things. And so we sold bonds this year, gave each one of them a little over $1 million for them to do some big things on the road and bridges. We'll use that other money to improve our IT capabilities. We're always having to buy more storage capacity. We're providing video cameras for our sheriff's department, and we have to store every minute of data that's collected on those video cameras. Have to keep it for years. So it takes a lot to do that. I will be happy to report to you that both of our bonding agencies, Standard & Poor's and Moody's, recently upgraded the county's bond rating to AA+. Now, AAA is the highest bond rating you can get in America. Bastrop County is now rated at AA+, 1/2 of a step below the highest bond rating you can get at any government in America.
That translates into lower interest rates.
That translates into many positive things, including lower interest rates. The $10 million we recently sold in bonds, the interest rate on those bonds is 1.47% interest for a 20-year bond. That is as close to free money as you're going to get. And so that's a great benefit of that strong bond rating. But then there are other benefits as well. And that bond rating came, it's the best ever that we've ever had here. It came from a strong leadership team. It came from conservative budgeting and by building our reserve accounts. You may recall that back when the 2011 fire hit Bastrop County, FEMA came to town and said, well, we'll have to clean up this mess. We'll pay 75% of it. The local government has to pay 25%. Well, 25% of $20 million, and that's what it's going to cost to clean up all that debris, is $5 million. We didn't have $5 million in 2011. In fact, we didn't have $3 million in Bastrop County in 2011. Today, our cash reserve is $18 million. And during that same period of time, we've reduced the tax rate from 63.25 cents per hundred down to 55.9 cents per hundred, reduced it almost 8 cents while building our cash reserve and improving our bond. So I'll just tell you, I'm bragging on our county government. I'm bragging on our commissioner's court, our auditor, and our entire financial team, because they are doing a fabulous job in in managing Bastrop County in such a way that we are now positioned to deal with the future in a way that we never were in the past. We've got a couple of projects that we're going to be building soon. In fact, we recently received building permits from the city to start a community center up at Mayfest Park. It'll be near the rodeo arena, over sort of behind Lost Pines Body Shop, if you know where that is. It'll be about 10 or 11,000 square feet of the building. It will house our long-term recovery team as a permanent offices for them. And we will also move our Texas A&M Ag Extension Department out there. That's our 4-H and FFA young people youth programming. We thought that would be a great location. It's right across the grassy area from the Kenny Step Show Barn, where we have the livestock show and sale every year. And of course, it's right there close to the rodeo arena. So that's going to be a real asset for the county when we get that built. It will also serve as an emergency shelter when we have to evacuate people because of fire, flood, or freeze, or whatever.
Is that kind of amenities like they do in Smithville, that thing?
Oh, it won't be as big as the rec center in Smithfield, and it won't be designed as a rec center as much as it will be a project center for our youth, and it'll have a commercial kitchen in it. So if we have to use it as a shelter, we'll have a place to prepare food on site there. And one of the things we're going to be adding to that, I talked to our development director about it, but we don't yet have the funding. We'll find the funding. We're going to be adding auxiliary power to that facility.
Okay.
So in case we have another 100-year freeze, we will be able to continue to use that facility just like we did our Office of Emergency Management and Communications Center during the freeze. Even without power, we were able to use the auxiliary generators to keep that building going. So those are the big things that are happening in Bastrop County right now. As far as economic development opportunities, it's just amazing to see what's happening here and what the potential is. As you all know, Tesla is building this billion-dollar facility just up the road here, a few miles from us. And it's quite a sight to see a building almost a mile long and 60 feet high. That's going to be the center where they make their truck product. And also I'm hearing that they may also have some other products. They may maybe do some of their solar power products there, some of the battery packs and that sort of thing. But that's going to be a game changer employment wise. And many of the people who work in that factory are going to need to live here in Bastrop County, partly because you can't afford to live in Travis County anymore. And there's not much land in Travis County that can be developed for residential use. So that's part of the reason we're seeing such pressure here. On the other side of the county, you may know that the University of Texas has decided to move that science park that was there in Smithfield to consolidate that with the science park they're developing in Houston. And so that facility is going to be available soon for someone else to move into. We've got several candidates who are interested in that. We've shown it many times, and hopefully we will get another research facility or an employer that will provide excellent quality jobs and will continue to have a real presence out there. Dr. Johnson knows more about this than I do, but we've dealt with this for over 2 years now, haven't we, Dave?
I think you know more about the buyers. I've given one of the tours.
Yeah.
About it.
Well, I used to have to sign do not non-disclosure agreements with these buyers because they're competing with other people with the same space. So I can't tell you who we've shown it to, but I can tell you we've shown it to some very solid potential users there, and we hope to get something going there pretty soon. The American Recovery Act funding that's been committed to Bastrop County amounts to about $7.5 million. We have not yet received our first tranche of that. It'll come about half now. Half of it will come a year from now, according to the rules from the U.S. Treasury. They are developing the guidelines about how that money can be used. And we have to be careful how we use it, because if we misuse it, then they will want to take it back. They will want us to reimburse them for any funds that we use that is not full, that not according to their guidelines. Need to be very careful about that. But a couple of things that they've told us that would be acceptable would be to expand our infrastructure facilities, including broadband. And that's a very big project with Bastrop County right now. We've learned because of the pandemic and because of the education system needing stronger internet service throughout the county, we realized how far behind we are on it. So we hired a company called Connected Nations to come in and do a survey, a countywide survey. And they did a fabulous job with that. In fact, they said that they had a higher percentage of response from Bastrop County than any entity that they've done a survey for, and they've done some surveys all over the country. I mean, we had a great response. People are very interested in this right now. And what we realize is there are large sections of the rural part of Bastrop County that do not have acceptable internet service. And some sections of the county don't have any at all, regardless of the speeds that we're talking about. So internet, I think, broadband is going to be the big investment that we're going to try to use this American Recovery Funding for. We may also use it for some business assistance, businesses and nonprofits that have suffered in their funding during the COVID pandemic. We may also have a program where they can apply for some funds.
We actually met with Commissioner Beck
Good.
about, she's a good person, and about getting rural internet out in the sticks where we have a property.
Well, we know that that's a big thing. You know, internet used to be considered, I mean, just 10 or 15 years ago, it was considered sort of a luxury. It was something that everybody, you know, not everybody had. Now it's an essential utility. It's just as essential as electricity or water. And in fact, I think it's the third leg of that stool. If we don't have strong internet throughout our county, we're not going to be very attractive to commerce or to businesses. I can say this, before Tesla chose the site they chose on 130, they were looking in Bastrop County. And we met with them a couple of times about some property up on 969. And one of their big questions was, how are we going to get the kind of internet, the kind of fiber optic cable service that we need here? The other problem for that was how to get 5,000 people in and out of that facility along Highway 969. It would have been a new bridge across the river at the end of Pape. It would have been many changes. But these are the kinds of things that we have to think about as we think about the future of Bastrop County. Bastrop County is going to grow. We don't want to keep it from growing, because you're either growing or you're dying. So we want it to grow, but we want it to grow well. We want it to be the kind of growth that we can be proud of, that we have some sense of management of, so that for our children and grandchildren, we can look back and say we did what we could during our lives to make Bastrop County a great place to live and work and raise a family. So highway projects I'll mention. I know you're all aware that they're building Ross Road and another one at Kellum Road in Travis County to get people in and out of the CODA facility better, and also the school there, the Del Valley School, with south of Highway 71. We thought we had funding for the 3 traffic lights that are in either at the county line or inside Bastrop County. And we did have funding lined up, thanks to Claire Beckett and her work on the Campo board, until somebody in Austin had the grand idea of putting a tunnel through the center of Austin, so that they could double the capacity of I-35 and put half of it underground. Everything else that wasn't already pretty much shovel ready. So the funding that we had lined up for these 3 overpasses got sucked into that tunnel they're putting through the city of Austin. I'm all for improving the traffic mess in Austin. I think all of us are, but it's not easy to give up that commitment from TxDOT on our funding. So TxDOT partnered with us then, and we've applied for grant funding that was made available through the federal government after Hurricane Harvey, because Highway 71, as you all know, is an evacuation route when any storm approaches the central part of the Gulf Coast. And it wouldn't be unusual for us to be evacuating hundreds of thousands of people right through Bastrop County to Travis County or to points north of here on Highway 71. It happened during Hurricane Rita, and it'll happen again. So our claim is, and our application is, that because this is a hurricane evacuation route, it has a strong nexus to Hurricane Harvey, and we need the funding to build these 3 overpasses so that we can keep traffic moving. The 3 overpasses, TxDOT has had some preliminary design and engineering done. We're looking at about $110 million for the 3 of them, about $30 million a piece. The one on the county line will be a little bit more because it has to reach all the way over Dry Creek, which is inside Travis County. So we're partnering with TxDOT, we're partnered with Travis County and other agencies in our application for $110 million of grant funding to build these 3 additional.
Is the overpass at 969 still?
That'll be one of them. The one at 969 is a very important one. The one at Pope in front of the high school, that's a very important one. We've got to protect those kids much better than we are now. And of course, the one at the county line there that is close to Dry Creek. Those are the 3 locations that we've applied for. We've not yet heard about our application, but it's a very strong application. And I think it has as good a chance as anything of being accepted. If it is, then we will have the funding back and we can get started building the overpasses as soon as possible. I'll finish with a little word about the county budget. We're now have an operating budget of a little over $40 million a year to provide the goods and services that our citizens expect of us. That the development services has grown tremendously in the last few years. And of course, with additional population, we need to expand our law enforcement division. So we need new deputies and new investigators to take care of additional population. And then some of our other services, animal services, for example, has been growing because more people move here, more pets there are, and more pets than we have those that need to be taken care of. So our budget has been growing because of this growth demand that we see. Our tax base exceeds about $7 billion. That's the highest it's ever been in history. So that's a very strong tax base. Now from that, there are several exemptions. There's the 65 and older exemption and some ag exemptions and some other things that we don't actually tax, $7 billion in value, but that's our tax base. It's $7 billion. That's a huge amount. Our tax rate, as I said before, is 55.9 cents. It's the lowest. It's, as far as I know, it's the lowest it's ever been. We can find records back 30 years. So for 3 decades, it's the lowest tax rate we've had in 3 decades here. And yet we're doing more and we're working smarter. And I think we're providing great leadership for the citizens of Bastrop County. So, Norm, that's my report. I'd be happy to entertain questions about any of these things I've talked about or anything else that might be on anybody's mind.
Fantastic work. As these developments occur, are they in net? Do they require less services to produce income?
That's a great question, Norm. Typically, we say that residential developments need more resources than they pay for, and commercial development pays for more resources than it needs. So you have the balance. Without the residential development, you're not going to get commercial development. And so, we take the good with the bad and the bad with the good, and we realize rooftops may cost us money and police services and environmental services and that sort of thing. But without the rooftops, you're not going to get the shopping centers and the industrial and the jobs. And so you take them both and you try to balance that as you go along. We are in our development, I'm glad you mentioned that, because in our development, we're looking for every opportunity we can find to have an influence over the quality of the development. I'll just say this briefly, and I'm not complaining, I'm just talking about reality. Counties in Texas have very little authority. In fact, have no authority over zoning and very little authority over land use. Like I said before, we can keep you from putting a solid waste dump station next to your residential area, and we can keep you from putting an adult bookstore next to your residential. That's about all we can do as far as land use goes. And we don't want to build on the floodplain. That makes sense. We're going to keep people safe. But we have very little authority when it comes to no authority when it comes to zoning and little authority when it comes to land use development. So the only thing we can do is when someone needs something like a PID or a MUD or a variance to our subdivision ordinances, when they need something from us, then we can negotiate with them. And that's what we try to do. We're in the business of finding ways to get developers to commit to things that are a higher standard than what they would have built in exchange for some benefit from the county that we can provide. So that's the challenge that I and the commissioners face pretty much every month as we try to manage the growth that's coming to Bastrop County. Great question. Any other questions? Yes, Rick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna ask, you're gonna make the Mayfest part of long-term recovery and possibly overflow for disaster.
Yes.
The one that's at the senior citizen net, that's to remain the same to be another.
It is. Great question,
Disaster.
Janet. Yes. Well, what we found out in 2011 is we didn't have enough disaster facilities to serve our people. And so through funding, grant funding primarily, we've, the only one we had at that time was the rec center in Smithfield. We've increased the size of that rec center through grant funding. And we've assisted both the city of Bastrop and the city of Elgin to build a facility that could be used for disaster recovery if we needed to call on it for that. Elgin built a recreation center of their own. They added several $1 million to the grant that we were able to provide for them. And they have that available in case I need to call on that disaster. City of Bastrop built a senior citizen center. They added some money to what we provided for them, built a senior citizen center. And again, if we had to call on it, if the mayor or I had to call on it for disaster recovery, it would be available for those purposes. It was designed as a multi-purpose facility. And this new community center that we're going to build up at Mayfest Park will be the fourth public facility that we can call on in Bastrop County in case we ever had to evacuate a large number of people. Good question.
Okay, we're partnering with the homeless shelter. How much of a urgency is there to get that thing expanded or running a little different?
Well, for those of us who are public policy makers, that is high on our radar, because what we don't want to happen in Bastrop County is to have a lot of homeless people living in public spaces and public places and not being properly cared for. So we are big supporters of Pastor Nava and his efforts to build facilities for those who don't have homes, even though they might only be temporary facilities, until family or friends or churches can help them out with something more permanent. We support what Pastor Nava is doing. I support it personally, and we support it publicly as well. This, as Austin has proven to us, it is a very difficult thing to deal with once it gets started, once it proliferates in a community. Our best approach to it is to manage it from the get-go so that we don't end up with a huge problem.
One of the things we had Pastor Nava do a presentation, and we've helped him. We did that Veterans Transitional College Center. One thing that's good about him, here's the rules. And he knows of what he speaks. He's an ex-convict.
That's true.
He can tell the nonsense from the good stuff.
He has walked the walk and talked the talk. And he has credibility because of that. And he has a heart. I mean, he has a passion for it. And that's really what we appreciate.
It's a small facility,
Very small.
and there is a 5-acre tract behind him that he's very excited about purchasing, but it's expensive and he's not going to go there without help.
Well, knowing Pastor Nava, his vision will draw many people to it, and many hands make light work.
So you're optimistic that just like the philanthropers in Bastrop County are going to understand this is important.
Yes.
And I think his plan, I went around with him last week, and he's trying to make it where people are going to take care of their spot
Yeah.
Whereas in Austin, they just all got on top of each other and no one knows whose property is who, and nobody cared to clean it up.
Well, there are a couple of models in Travis County that are actually doing very well. Mobile Loaves and
Okay, we
Fishes
went out there.
built a tiny home community out near
Yeah.
Lake Long, and it's a model. I mean, that would be ideal for us to develop something like that and give people a sense of community, a sense of pride, where they took care of,
Okay.
and not just a tent under.
We're learning about who these people are by going over there.
Yes.
And you go to Mobile Loaves and Fishes, those are your high-end homes, okay? They're actually paying their way and they're working and they've been through the mill and they assimilated into that beautiful facility.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what we're thinking now, this other group of people, they don't want to be under a roof, you know? And they're not mentally with the capitalistic, I'm going to get ahead attitude, and they're just going to always be there.
Yes.
And so he's thinking how of a tent facility on that 5 acres and give them a little. He says 45 by 40, and they are responsible for that spot. And is that how the county sees it going, or?
Well, that's certainly better than a tent under a bridge.
Right.
Somewhere.
Right.
That would be a step. And, some people get down on their luck and they get down on themselves and they don't have much self-esteem and they don't really care.
No support system.
And no support. So what Pastor Nava and his program is doing is building all those things in a person at the same time. He provides a roof over their head and the food for them to eat. And if you work on that whole person, then you have a chance of redirecting them to a better future. And you don't just, you don't just feed the bear, you actually.
Okay, the alarming
make it
thing,
better.
Judge, was he told us, and I've told several other people, and that's baloney. 35% of the high school kids are missing in action,
Homeless.
couch to couch.
They're calling seniors, just like seniors.
But he's taking in high school kids that have not been under a roof for a year.
I've discussed that with Pastor Nava and others, by the way. He's not the only one who's.
That might be the urgent part of this.
About our, many of our young people don't feel like they have a home. They're not welcome at their parents' home, or their parents don't have a home. And so they're, like you said, living in their car or with a friend in someone's couch. So those are big issues. It takes a community, all of us working together to deal with this. And it's not something that is pleasant to talk about, but it's something that's essential. We've got to deal with it. We've got to talk about it. And we've got to support people like Roland Nava who are making a difference.
So he's a one-man show.
Well, he's
I
pretty
mean, he
unique.
tells me he
There
has.
are others who help me out, but he's unique.
Yeah, but he's having to review every case every month. And I'm going,
Yeah.
just go, well, I don't think that can be done.
One of the causes for our barbecue showdown thing would be support of good causes.
Yeah.
Where particularly the focus of that is on not just funds going into general funds.
Sure.
Exactly what would you do with this, though? That's going to be one of the prerequisites.
Well,
Pastor Nava told us what he wants is a septic system for that housing for the teenagers.
for the Zen house, okay.
Anyhow,
That kind of a thing. I mean, it's very simple.
Well, it's either that or he was saying porta potties, and I'm going,
Oh,
that's
no.
so expensive.
Yeah, because they have to be maintained all the time. Yeah, we'll help out how we.
Okay.
Okay, it's a good thing. So it's nice to have a structure, to your point. Kids get willy-nilly, then chaos, and you end up with like under 35.
Sure.
So it's splendid.
David?
Yeah, I'd like to commend you and the county on your pandemic response. You guys really have done a good job, man. The different sides of the issue and getting so many people vaccinated.
Well, thank you,
I know
David.
last time we talked, you thought CVS and Walgreens was going to vaccinate everybody, and I sort of was skeptical about that, and you guys came up with a good plan.
Well, it has been a team effort, I can tell you, and three individuals really stepped up to make it happen. Dr. Desmar Walks, our local health authority, she's passionate about healthcare. Roland is about taking care of the homeless, and she is also well connected with the medical facility, the medical team. She came to me way early last March, and she said, "Judge, we're fixing to have a big problem, and we're not ready for it." He said, "We could have thousands of people sick with COVID at one time, and we don't have medical facilities to take care of them. So we need to have an aggressive response to this pandemic." So she and a team of medical people that she drew together, and then Debbie Rosette sort of is an angel among us, because she has a lifetime of experience both with Women's Shelter and also United Way in Austin. And now she lives in Bastrop County, is retired from those obligations. And a few years ago, she had a dream of developing an organization called Bastrop County Cares and beginning to deal with some of these social issues that nobody was talking about: housing, food, deserts, medical care, all of these kinds of things Debbie Rosette was talking about before COVID hit. She had developed a network of people, kind of a coalition of people, that whenever we needed large numbers of volunteers to provide big vaccination clinics, Debbie said, "I'll take care of that." And she did. She'd get 50 or 60 volunteers on day after day after day.
My wife and I did that.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen both of you there.
I pulled vaccine doses last week.
Well,
Hundreds of them.
so she was sort of this, I mentioned before, a three-legged stool. She was sort of the second stool of our COVID response, second leg of our three-legged stool. The third leg was Christine Files in our Office of Emergency Management. You know, Christine, I brought her on board a couple of years ago after Mike Fisher passed away. And she had, if you recall, after the big fire of 2011, she led the long-term recovery team for years. She helped raise millions of dollars and rebuild 133 homes for families who lost their homes, uninsured or underinsured people. She got the money to build for building materials and got volunteer labor all the way from Ohio and Pennsylvania come down here to help out with building these homes. And she gave keys to 133 families debt-free. They moved back in after the fire. That's the kind of work that Christine Files did. So when we had an opening in that position, it was an easy choice for me to ask her to come on board and be our emergency management coordinator. Well, she jumped in with both feet, and she's been baptized with both water and fire in the short 2 years that she's been our EMC. So with her network with Texas Department of Emergency Management and Department of Public Safety, and all the training and skills that she and others have, those three people together were sort of our amazing response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And because of them working together, each one doing their thing, using their skills and their networks, we've been able to get all these people vaccinated in a very short period of time, no cost to anybody. And we're in great shape now for a county our size because of that. And I mentioned them by name because they deserve the credit for it.
Christine's doing our program here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, is she? Well, good. You give her a big pat on the back when you talk to her, because she's been an essential part. She and Debbie and Dr. Walks. By the way, Dr. Walks did such a good job and got such accolades from over west. We've lost her to Austin, Travis County now. She's going to be their director of emergency medical services. So we're without that benefit right now, but we'll find someone to take up the mantle.
Let me make you an offer. This event we're having on Labor Day, we're going to have junior rodeo and all that kind of stuff. We're going to have vendor booths, and we're going to have nonprofit booths. And one of the options you have is City of Bastrop and Bastrop County is a classic nonprofit organization to do good stuff. If you'd like to have a booth, this is for Mayor Schrader and company too, if you'd like to have a booth to tell the good news about Bastrop County, we'll give you a nice prominent location for that.
Great. I will talk to our Economic Development and Tourism Director, who is Adina Lewis. Adina goes all over the state telling, what do you know about that, Susan? She used to do that kind of work with Adina when she was the Chamber of Smith. Yeah. So I will share that with Adina, and hopefully she or some of her staff can get out there and put up some displays to tell the story. That'd be good. Great questions. Anything else?
Anything from the Zoom?
Go to the Peanut Gallery. Oh, we do have a visitor, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
We have a visitor speaking virtual. Ming, can you say hello?
Yes, this is Means. I live at Galveston, Texas. I talked to Norman's this morning, so I thought that maybe I can join the groups today. So thank you very much for having me.
You know, basically, it's the good news, bad news about the new normal. And then she's sending us a prospective new member with a family history, and he has a business in Bastrop County. So if we can get that kind of people, and I'll join Ming's thing tomorrow, and maybe we'll learn something from each other. We spent a whole lot of time reinventing the wheel.
Well, make it a better wheel.
Better wheel.
Thank you, Nate.
Budget. Anyone else have any questions? Anyone? The Kenton Company, do you have anything, or anyone else? Connie, do you have any words of wisdom?
I'm good. I've just been listening.
Okay, well, splendid. Well, splendid. We're hoping our event will go good. And thank you, Judge Pape, for your words of wisdom. I'm going to, this is being recorded. If that's okay by you, we'll turn into YouTube and publish it, post, but it's good news. The problem is not enough people know about the good news of Bastrop County. Some people consider Bastrop the far side of the moon.
No, it's really not.
Can you clap?
Yeah. Excuse me, four-way test. You have any questions? Let's see, here's a test. I don't know if I can put up the slide, but let's just see if we can remember it.
I think I ran out of three last time.
Yeah, that's terrible. Four-way test of things we think, say, or do. First,
Is
is
it
it
the
the
truth?
truth? Second,
It's
fair to all
concerned.
third,
Build goodwill and
beneficial. Thank you.
Oh, we don't think
I don't know why they don't combine.
By the way,
the adults in here.
By the way, anyone's entitled to a free bottle of water. Not throw them away. We're going to sell these. Yeah, they're reusable, they're rainwater. And we gave away some of these at the conference club. The beauties and publicize our club, publicize Bastrop County to some extent, and our event. So the idea is to sell these. So what we're going to do is have there'll be, for anyone who's interested in participating in the following meeting, we'll have a planning meeting for the event. Very good. Okay, well, thank you all very much. Well, thank you for coming. And you're welcome to come anytime.
Did Texas Rainbow?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to see it?
There's Smithville. Now, what he suggested is you rinse them with vinegar or something to get